attention, please. My name is Teresa Eyring. I'm the Executive Director of TCG. Thank you. I know, this space is incredible. It's so beautiful here, and we just so appreciate that you're willing to travel around New York City with us. This is our first time in Tribeca. Yes. I'm just going to wait. People in the back. Can we just quiet it down here? We're going to get started. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's my very great pleasure to welcome you to the 2013 Fall Forum on Governance. Our title this year is Investing in Vitality. In so many ways, our field is already reaping a harvest of artistic vitality and community impact from investments that were made years ago by the founders of the resident theater movement. However, through years of research and dialogue, it's clear that two persistent challenges remain. We are gathered here to invest in a properly capitalized and truly inclusive theater field that reflects the cultural diversity of our country and our world. Thank you. That is what we're going for. This Fall Forum sold out faster than any in my tenure, and that tells us that you're here in part because you believe in that vision for our theater field as well. However, seeing so many smiling faces, people who want to keep talking and interacting with each other, so many familiar faces, and welcoming new friends to the Fall Forum, I am reminded of the #1 reason people say they come to TCG convenings, and that is to connect with peers and with friends. So welcome old friends, welcome new friends, and on behalf of TCG's entire staff and board, we are so happy to see you. We are beginning this Fall Forum, as we often do, with the voice of the artist. We do this because we know that capitalization is not solely a financial matter, and inclusion is not only a moral principle. We know that they are inextricably bound to the art. And when theaters have the capital to take risks, the art grows stronger. And when theaters embrace the charge of diversity, the art grows deeper. And this is the kind of vitality we're here to invest in. So, let's begin with the voice of one of the most beloved performing artists of our time, Brian Stokes Mitchell. You may know Brian best as an award-winning performer with a career that has spanned Broadway, television, film, jazz, and opera. From Man of La Mancha to King Hedley II, he is also a true Renaissance man with a deep compassion for the well-being of other artists. He's also a fellow trustee of mine, serving as the long-term chairman of the board of the Actors Fund. Joining him will be Joe Benacasa, the president and CEO of the Actors Fund. And by the way, I first met Joe when we served together on the Tony Awards nominating committee, and I've since had the pleasure of getting to know him even better as the steward of a human service organization that works tirelessly to support artists. These are two speakers who know that investing in the vitality of the arts means investing in the artist and supporting their quality of life. Please join me in welcoming Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Good evening, everybody. How are we all today? Great. Thank you, Teresa, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you also for serving on the board of the Actors Fund as well. It's really great to be in a room like this. We're with our tribe here, right? You know? So it's really great. And to be in a room of theater people like this, I was thinking either you're going to be like the best audience in the world or the most critical worst audience in the world. So no matter what, I figured I better not suck tonight. So I'm gonna... But it's interesting. Here's the fascinating thing, you know, just hanging out here now and talking to different people, I've kind of thrown out everything that I was originally going to talk about here because so many other interesting subjects and thoughts and ideas came up that I just sat down and I just kind of reorganized what I was going to talk about. I know vitality is kind of the watchword for the forum here for TCG this year, and I kind of want to talk about that. I wear a lot of hats. I'm an actor, I'm a singer, I'm a record producer, I'm an orchestrator, I'm a actor on television and film. I've kind of hit everything that I can. I always say it's a good idea to rewrite yourself every now and then and reinvent yourself, and that's what I've tried to do. I also think it's harder to hit a moving target. So if I'm constantly changing venues and doing different things, that's a really great thing. So tonight I'm kind of wearing the hat of Actors Fund chairman of the board, and I'm going to kind of wrap some things in that way. Let me tell you about, I know I'm preaching the choir. Pretty much everybody here knows about the Actors Fund and what we do and who we are and everybody, and I hope that you and yours and your performers and your actors and your musicians and the people that work in your theaters, I hope they are really aware of who we are and what we do as well, because we're here for everybody in times of need or crisis or transition. And a lot of people donate performances throughout the country, not only on Broadway. But the reason we do that is when people are in trouble. And Actors Fund is not just for actors, as you know, it's for musicians, anybody who's a theater professional, agents, actors, producers, directors, who've made their living in the theater arts. But when they're in a time of crisis or transition or trouble, it's really important to know that there's a safety net like the Actors Fund there. So please, 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 I hope whenever somebody has an issue, a problem, a question about insurance, anything like that, please direct them our way. actorsfund.org is the website, or I mean, we're in the 21st century now. I mean, you can find pretty much anything you want to, so I don't have to tell you how to find us. Okay, here's a little trivia story about the Actors Fund. A lot of people don't know. I tell this a lot of times when I go to the 9th performances that people do on Broadway. Joe Benincasa, who's here, and I'm going to introduce him a little bit later, and he can talk more nuts and bolts. I'm going to do all the more artsy-fartsy kind of talk, I think, today. But Joe and I and a lot of the staff members go backstage before the special length performances that a lot of the shows do, particularly on Broadway. And I've started kind of telling the story of the Actors Fund because particularly when you go to a company that has a lot of really young people involved, nobody knows who the Actors Fund and what we are, so I'd like to give a little history about it. But what I found out is a lot of established professionals don't know much about how the Actors Fund started. And here's the story as far as we know it. The Actors Fund started, it's 130 years ago now when it started. And the way that it started, or the reason it started, was there was a gentleman in a company, we think as far as we can establish he was a crew member, on a company that was playing in a regional theater somewhere, not on Broadway. And unfortunately, the gentleman passed away. And his wife did not have the money to bring his body back, and he was not making enough money as well. And a very interesting thing, people, I guess, had thought that they could take him to a cemetery or a church or something where he could be buried and laid to rest properly. But at that time, actors were very much maligned. It didn't help that one of them had just killed the president, probably. And an interesting little fact was that at that time, they would not allow actors, and actors is the catchphrase, by the way, and it's why we're called the Actors Fund, for anybody working in show business, they would not allow actors to be buried in consecrated ground. Isn't that amazing? So what happened was Buffalo Bill Cody and Edwin Booth, brother of John Wilkes Booth, and Harrison Fisk, who was an entrepreneur at the time, they got together and they pooled their resources and they bought a plot of land in Brooklyn in a part of a cemetery. And this gentleman was brought out there and buried there, and that kind of became the beginning of the Actors Fund. It wasn't long after that a lot of performers thought, you know what, this is a really great thing. We need an organization like this where we can take care of our own. And a lot of the important and popular performers of the time started doing their own special performances to raise money for the fund. And it started involving a lot of people from the government, the mayor's offices and governor's offices as well. Because as we all know, everybody loves performers. You know, everybody loves actors, and everybody loves the theater, and everybody loves the theater arts, and they like to be close to it. So it's one of the advantages, I think, that we all have here, is there's kind of a sexiness that's involved with that. Whether we're attracting board members, or whether we're attracting our members for our theater, people like to be close to people in the theater. It's interesting because earlier I was talking to Susan Medak. Susan, where are you? From Berkeley Rep? Are you? She's back there. We were just talking about the importance of the theater and what makes the theater so interesting. And I think this is one of the things that that kind of sets us apart from anybody else. We were talking about, you know, how everything is changing now, and movies, people aren't going to movies in the same way they used to be, and the networks, you know, have all changed up, because first there was cable television, and now people can download programs and everything, and everybody's on very unsure footing. And theater, we're okay because we've always been dying. Right? So it's like, yeah, old hat, been there, seen that, done that, and we're still here. But I think that this is one of the interesting things that we're talking about, is one of the things that sets the theater apart, and this is what I love so much about the theater. And I've had the good fortune of working in television and film as well, but there's nothing like working in the theater. And this is why I think what we do will not die and won't have the same kinds of transitional problems that some of the other film and television are having. Theater is this magical thing. When I'm on a stage, from an actor's point of view, I love it because I know when I'm giving a performance, everybody in that audience is having a once-in-a-lifetime experience. What's going on in that theater in that night is never ever going to be repeated again, ever in time. What's also interesting about it is because, unlike a two-dimensional space like a movie or a television, when you're sitting in a movie theater, no matter where you're sitting, you're watching the same show, and the people that come to the 3 o'clock matinee and the 12 o'clock midnight show and the show 3 weeks from now are all going to be having the exact same experience. And no matter where they're sitting in the theater, they're all going to be having and experiencing the exact same thing. Theater is cool because it's custom made for each audience member. It's custom made for the moment. And depending on where you're sitting, you're getting a different point of view, because we're working in 3 dimensions. It's also this very primal medium thing that we do. I think we're almost genetically programmed to respond and to love the theater. We are a sociological species, and we get along together and we survive together when we're together in a group. And that's how it's always been. Going back to that very, very first theater performer who was probably, you know, sitting around a campfire after the dinner, and the fire is starting to die down a little bit, and he starts creating this story of the hunt of that day, and other people join in. And that's the theatrical experience that an audience gets when they sit in the seats in our theaters as well, to hear their story being told from other people's points of view, and to realize, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one in the world that thinks that, or feels that, or fears that, or thinks that's funny. And there's this wonderful thing that happens when you're in a room with other people experiencing something that nobody else in the world ever again will experience in quite that same way. It's magical and it's wonderful, and that's why I so love being in a room with people like you who are creating that magic and making that happen. And it's why I think that we will continue to always be dying for the next thousands and thousands of years. We will always be that dying art that's going to be around. I have a great love of regional theaters. I was really raised in regional theater. A lot of people knew me from television first, because that's where you get your big exposure. I was on a show called Trapper John MD, which when I started when I was 20 years old. Oh, thank you to 4 of you that remember that. But it was interesting because people would always be surprised when they heard my music or heard me sing. My roots were in the theater. I started acting actually in San Diego, California. And I started at the Globe Theater. Yeah, give it up, San Diego. I started at the Globe. I was at the San Diego Civic Light Opera, which was Starlight Theater. And how many of you know about Starlight Theater? Yeah, okay, now I got to tell them about Starlight Theater. Starlight Theater is a great place to cut your teeth. See, I'm going off now, totally off script. Starlight Theater is, if you're ever in San Diego in the summer, you got to go to Starlight Theater. This is what's great about Starlight Theater, and this is where I cut my teeth. Starlight Theater is in Balboa Park. I think it holds 4,000 or 5,000 people. It's an open-air amphitheater, and it's right there. It's near the Globe Theater, and it's right there in the middle of Balboa Park. Now they do maybe 3 or 4 musicals in repertory generally each summer. Now the interesting thing about the theater is it was built before the airport was built. So when they built the airport, it just so happened that the airplanes come right over your head. But theater people are rarely deterred by anything. So what they did is they set up this series of lights in the front of the stage. So you'll be performing, you'll be doing your scene, and then, you see a green light and everything's fine and everything, and then as you're doing your scene, you kind of keep one eye looking that way, and then you see the lights going yellow. Okay, okay, the light's going yellow, great. And then when the light goes red, this is what you do. And as you're doing that, about 6 feet over your head is a 747. Coming into land, and everybody on the stage, am I right? Everybody on the stage freezes. And if you're in the middle of a song, you actually stop the phrase that you're going to do, because somebody's sitting at the back of the theater on those 3 lights, and they're watching the planes coming in is what's going on. So if you're in the middle of a dance number, no matter what it is, when you see that yellow light, okay, at the end of this phrase, red light, and whatever you're singing, oh, what a beautiful day. So that's what I cut my teeth on in San Diego. And my brother San Diego rep, we have some San Diego rep people here, right, today as well? Yeah, my brother George, he worked at San Diego rep. He's actually a costume designer now for the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. And he was both an actor at that time and designed a lot of shows there as well. So it's just really great to be in a room. This is like you're my peeps. So this is just really great to be here. The other thing that I love about being in the theater, and again, I'm preaching to the choir, I know all you know this, but it's one of the things Joe and I talk about all the time at the Actors Fund. And what is amazing to me about the theater, I think more than any art form, it is hugely collaborative. I can't think of another art form where you have actors, you have singers, you have dancers, you have directors, you have costume designers, you have producers, you have investors, you have choreographers, you have scenic designers. You have all of these people working together for one goal, for one moment in time where something wonderful, hopefully, is going to happen. And that collaboration, boy, when it goes well, you all know, there's nothing like it. It's just a magical, magical experience. And I've been fortunate to have many magical experiences. Ragtime was one of those magic experiences for me, where it felt like, thanks. it felt like, I've always said, it felt like somewhere in the ether before we existed on the planet, we all got together as these little whatever we were and said, you know what, I'm going to study acting, I'm going to study directing, I'm going to study choreography, I'm going to study whatever, I'm going to study this. And you know what, we're all going to get together and we're going to do something wonderful and magical on the planet. And that's what Ragtime felt like to me. And I'm sure that each one of you have had an experience like that in your theater as well, where where you can feel the effect that your show is having on an audience and on people. And it's a wonderful, beautiful way to change the world. It's the other thing that I love about what we do. I call myself the luckiest actor in the world. How lucky are we to be doing something like this for a living, right? I mean, it's just incredible. We get to change people's minds. We get to put good food into the world. We get to try to challenge people, the way they think, the way they feel, the way they see the world. And it's a very positive way, I think, to make a living. And I call myself the luckiest actor in the world. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is because when I left San Diego and left the regional theaters that prepared me very, very well for Hollywood and for Broadway and everything else, I never had to do anything else. I never waited tables. I never pumped gas. I've always been able to make my living somewhere in the theater or the performing arts, as a voiceover artist, in the theater, in television, doing all kinds of different things. So when Joe Benincasa asked me a few years back if I would join the Actors Fund board, I thought, you know what? Life has been good to me. I gotta get back. When life has been so good to you, when the universe is asking, hey, you know what? Time to do something for us. It's really hard to say no. And I was on the board for about 5 years, and then Joe approached me and said, you know what, we would like you to consider being the chairman of the board. And I thought, I am totally unqualified to do this. I was starting a new career in the concert world. I was just about to have my first and only child at that time. I thought, this is absolutely crazy. I'm a working actor. How can I possibly do this? I said, Joe, how long is this term for? He says, it's 3 years. I said, 3 years? I can't possibly do 3 years. I don't have the time to do that. And the other thing is, I wanted to be able to serve the fund well. I didn't want to just show up and just, be the president or the chairman of the board on paper. I wanted to really be able to give something, and I didn't think that I could do that. So I told Joe, I said, Joe, I will do 1 year, and we'll see how it goes from then. So here I am now, 10 years later. Just a word of warning, never get in a room alone with Joe Benincasa. He is the most persuasive and just also one of the most brilliant people in the world. It's been a joy to serve with him because Joe and we're kind of the same mind, it almost feels like. We approach life, I think, the same way. We have the same philosophy and a lot of different things. And Joe is also incredibly collaborative. And I know one of the themes that you have is governance. And I gotta say, I'm gonna turn most of that conversation over to Joe because Joe is a brilliant president and CEO of the organization, and what he knows and understands is that collaboration. And like the Actors Fund beginning, it's important to get artists together with entrepreneurs and other people that can help you. It's important to have a strong board that can help you and advise you in different ways. And Joe's been absolutely brilliant. The board that we have assembled is just incredibly wonderful and talented and thoughtful and giving and amazing. And it's really the strength of the Actors Fund board, as well as the staff that Joe has assembled. And I know what I'm speaking about holds true for all of your theaters as well. You know how important your board is, and you know how important it is to have a great, great staff behind you as well. Just nothing can beat that. But I'm going to let Joe talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of that because, I'm the actor and, I don't know about those things. And actually, I know more about them than I ever thought that I would. But I thought that I would be also kind of a poor chairman of the board when he asked me, because I really didn't know that much about governance, and I really didn't have that much desire to do it. You know, I'm an artist, that's what I really want to do, and I'm kind of this free spirit, and I don't like to be, you know, blocked in by bureaucracy and by Robert's Rules of Orders or anything. But it really, it turned out that that collaborative aspect of my work, of our work, of what we do, really worked well, and was something to transplant easily into the role as the chairman of the board, because I just basically brought those same kind of theater skills in to the boardroom, and you know, you let people do what they do. You know, when you surround yourself with good people, it's a wonderful thing. I had the good fortune to do Frasier as a recurring character a few years back. And after doing Trapper John, I did that show for 7 years, and it was great and everything, but I really loved the theater, and I had no desire to do television until I did Frasier. Because Frasier, the people on it were all so incredibly excellent. Everybody was excellent. That show was about excellence. The writers, the directors, the actors, the performers, everybody. And I thought, wow, if I could be on a show like this forever and ever, I would be very, very happy doing this. And Kelsey Grammer, who was the head of the show at the time, gave me a great lesson. I remember there was a joke that wasn't working, and they kept trying it, you know, when you do your rehearsals and everything. We kept trying, and the joke wasn't working, and finally Kelsey said to one of the writers, you know what, it needs to be a joke about so-and-so, such and such. You know what, you come up with it, you know what I mean. And then he trusted that the writers would come up with something brilliant. And they did. And as a producer, of course, he could have said, well, this is what it should be, let's do it my way. But it was a brilliant collaboration, that show, and that's why that show was so funny and worked so well, because everybody surrounded themselves with excellence, and then they trusted that all of the excellence that they surrounded themselves with, all of those excellent people knew what they were doing, and it allowed them to give up having to micromanage and kind of oversee everything, and that's very, very freeing. And that's what I feel we have in Joe Benincasa at the Actors Fund as well, because he is a man that he understands everything and how it all works together, and he understands collaboration, and he understands excellence. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to introduce Joe to you a little bit.